After my wife died, I changed my will to give everything to my daughter. 2 years later, she married a man who told her I was a burden, and said that I belonged in a care home, and she agreed. So I made a new will, and what I left them in the end, made them scream in court. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. After my wife passed, the silence in the house grew teeth. It didn't just settle, it stalked me. Gnawed at the edges of my days, bit into the hours after dinner, and howled through the nights when I thought I might finally rest. It wasn't just grief. It was absence. Evelyn had filled every quiet space with life. The kettle she always forgot on the stove. Her humming when she folded laundry. The way she'd narrate whatever novel she was reading like I was listening, even when I wasn't. Now, the house echoed. The wallpaper looked too bright. The air felt thinner. But I didn't fall apart. Because I still had Madeline. Our daughter. Our only child. The last living thread between Evelyn and me. She came by that first week with soup. She cleaned out Evelyn's closet gently, without asking. She held my hand at the memorial and whispered, "We'll be okay, Dad. I'm here." And I believed her. When Evelyn was dying, the hospice nurse said she only had hours. They gave me a chair by the bed, a soft blanket, and a warning that she'd likely sleep until the end. But Evelyn didn't sleep. She waited. Her eyes fluttered open just before midnight. Her voice was little more than breath. "Take care of her," she whispered, and her fingers curled around mine like they used to when we danced in the kitchen. "She'll need you." That was her last request. Not for flowers. Not for ashes scattered by the lake. Not for peace. Take care of her. And so I did. The week after the funeral, I called my lawyer and rewrote my will. Everything, the house we built together, the retirement accounts, the 10-acre plot of land I once dreamed of turning into a vineyard, even my father's war medals, I signed it all over to Madeline. There wasn't a single hesitation in my hand as I initialed the final page. Because it wasn't a transaction. It was love. A legacy. The world had taken Evelyn from me. But I could still give something to the person she loved most. I remember the day I handed Madeline the envelope, the first copy of the updated will. She looked surprised. Not touched, not overwhelmed, just surprised. "Dad, are you sure?" she asked. I smiled. "You're my daughter. Of course I'm sure." She nodded, folded the envelope without opening it, and placed it in her purse beside her sunglasses and keys. That moment should have meant more to her. But I didn't see it then. I didn't want to. I just poured her another cup of coffee and asked about work. About life. About anything that kept me from noticing how quickly she changed the subject. We had dinner every Sunday for a while. She'd bring takeout, or leftovers from her brunches with friends. She'd complain about traffic and trends and the price of oat milk, and I'd listen, grateful for the noise. Grateful not to be alone. Then, slowly, the Sundays stopped. "Busy week, Dad. Rain's awful, maybe next time." "Tyler and I already have plans." Tyler. That's when things started shifting. But I'll get to him soon. Because before the betrayal had a name, it started as silence. Little moments when I realized she was slipping away. When she forgot what day Evelyn passed. When she laughed at a show Evelyn used to hate. When she referred to the house, my house, as the place instead of home. I still kept the guest room made up for her. Still had her school trophies on the shelves. Evelyn's handwriting on sticky notes tucked in drawers, reminders to check the freezer, water the plants, call the dentist. I kept everything frozen in place. Like love was a museum. But Madeline had already moved on. She was building a new life. A modern one. With new rules, new goals, and new people. One of them was about to change everything. And not for the better. The first time I met Tyler, he called me, "Sir," with a smile too polished to be sincere. "Sir," he said, extending his hand like we were about to negotiate a land deal. "It's an honor." His handshake was limp. His watch was loud. Real estate, Madeline had said. Boutique investor. Startup energy. "He's got vision, Dad. You'd love him." I didn't. But I nodded. He wore loafers without socks and a blazer that cost more than my monthly groceries. He looked around my house like a home inspector, not a guest. His eyes drifted toward the hardwood floors. The crown molding. The view from the dining room window. "You've got great bones here," he said, gesturing vaguely around the room. "High resale potential. I can see why Madeline has such great taste." She laughed, one of those light, airy ones I hadn't heard since she was a teenager, and leaned into him like she used to lean into her mother during family photos. I poured coffee and kept quiet. They left after an hour. Tyler shook my hand again, said something about grabbing a beer sometime, and told me to call if I ever wanted to monetize the property. That was the phrase he used. Monetize. As if this house wasn't my life. As if Evelyn's garden was a liability. As if the walls didn't remember Madeline's first steps. After they drove off, I stood in the doorway for a long time. The smell of his cologne lingered. Something synthetic. Designed to impress. I washed the mugs twice that night. Not because they were dirty, just because. They got engaged that summer. No long talks. No visits. Just a text with a picture of the ring, oval cut, surrounded by diamonds. "Can't wait for you to meet the whole family officially," the message read. There was no question of blessing. No dinner invitation. Just an announcement, and a countdown. I bought them a gift anyway. A rare coin. 1878 Morgan silver dollar, pristine condition. I'd been saving it for Madeline's wedding since she was 10. She never acknowledged it. Not even a thank you card. The wedding wasn't at the church where I married Evelyn. It wasn't even in the state. They booked a vineyard 3 hours north. Modern decor. A rented string quartet. An open bar and hand-rolled cigars in a glass case labeled, "Curated for the gentleman." Tyler's side of the guest list looked like a LinkedIn convention: shiny teeth, expensive haircuts, people who laughed without smiling. I didn't recognize most of the names on Madeline's side either. They walked down the aisle to a slow, acoustic cover of some pop song I'd never heard. Madeline didn't wear her mother's dress. Didn't even ask about it. When I brought it up gently a week before the wedding, she wrinkled her nose. "Oh, Dad, it's beautiful, but it's just not really us. We're doing something more curated." Curated. That word stuck in my ribs like a bad piece of meat. At the reception, I gave a short speech. I kept it simple. Talked about Evelyn. About love being work, not magic. About how a good marriage isn't built on aesthetics or ambition, but shared quiet moments, the kind you don't post about. People clapped politely. Tyler's best man got up after me and told a story about a Miami bachelor party and a tequila-fueled boat rental. The crowd roared. Madeline laughed louder than anyone. After the honeymoon, they didn't come around much. When I called, I got voicemail. When I texted, I got, "Busy, we'll call later." They didn't. Sometimes she posted pictures online. Brunches. Beach trips. Home staging for Tyler's clients. Always grinning. Always golden light. No mention of me. No sign of the house. No trace of the woman who once climbed into my lap during thunderstorms and said, "Don't let go, Daddy." One photo stopped me cold. Tyler standing on my back porch. Captioned, "Someday soon." Someday soon what? I read it 5 times. Something in my chest went tight. The next time I saw them in person, it was at a cafe. Madeline invited me out of the blue. Said she missed me. I arrived 10 minutes early. She and Tyler showed up 20 late. Madeline hugged me stiffly. Tyler didn't even stand. "We've been thinking," she said, sipping a drink with some name I didn't recognize. "About your future." I blinked. "My future?" Tyler leaned in. "It's just that this place, your house, it's a lot to maintain. And you're not getting younger." I stared at him. Then at her. Madeline smiled carefully. "There's this assisted living community not far from us. Really lovely. With a wellness spa. Group events. Even bocce ball." I didn't say anything. Tyler continued, as if he were presenting a pitch deck. "You'd keep your independence. And it'd give us peace of mind knowing you're safe, supported. We're not saying sell the house right now, but it's something to plan for." I stirred my coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just bitter heat. "Thanks," I said finally. "I'll consider it." Tyler smiled like a man who thought he'd closed a deal. And Madeline? She didn't even ask how I was sleeping. After that cafe meeting, I didn't speak to them for a while. Not because I was angry, not yet, at least, but because I needed quiet. Needed to hear myself think again. Their voices, their smiles, their curated words, they rang hollow now. Like voices down a long hallway. No echo, no warmth. They'd made their intentions clear. I was becoming inconvenient. A phase to be managed. A property to be monetized. And Madeline, my sweet girl, had sat there nodding beside him, sipping her lavender foam and calling it love. That night, I went up to the attic for the first time in years. The light was dim. The air dry, smelling faintly of cedar and dust. Evelyn used to come up here to cry when Madeline was a teenager. She'd think I didn't notice, but I always did. She hated how Madeline changed after college. "It's like she left home and came back, colder," she once whispered, folding old baby clothes into storage bins. Like the world taught her how to stop needing us. "She's just growing," I'd said. "She'll come back to center." I was wrong. She never did. I sat cross-legged on the floor, knees popping in protest, and opened a long metal box where I kept old files. Receipts. Letters. Financial statements no one had touched in over a decade. And then I saw it, the folder. Maroon. Leather-backed. Tied with twine. Will and estate, mad. I'd updated it the week after Evelyn passed. Every asset, every account. Initialed, signed, notarized. It was all there, proof of how deeply I believed in my daughter. How blind that love had made me. I stared at the first page until the words blurred. And then I flipped to the last one, the signature line. Walter P. Morgan. Signed clean. Steady hand. No hesitation. And right under it, all assets to be inherited solely by Madeline Rose Morgan. No backup beneficiaries. No instructions. Just full trust, in writing. I sat there in silence. And I thought about how we got here. It wasn't one moment that changed her. Not a sudden thing. It was erosion. Little things. Like when she started calling less during college. Like when she didn't invite us to her grad ceremony because it was too chaotic. Or when she rolled her eyes when I told her I still packed lunch for Evelyn every day, even when she stayed home. Cute, she'd said, like it was quaint. Outdated. Evelyn cried that night. And then there were the birthdays. The ones she missed. The way her hugs got shorter. How she stopped asking about the past, stopped caring where we came from, what we built. She was never cruel. Just, distant. And distance, over time, becomes a wound. I pulled the will from the folder. Smoothed it out on the attic floor. My knees were stiff, my hands slower than they used to be, but my mind was sharper than ever. They thought they were dealing with a sentimental old man. A lonely widower with a soft spot for his little girl. But I'd run a business for 35 years. Negotiated with sharks. Built everything from nothing. And I didn't survive all that to be outmaneuvered by my own daughter and her husband with podcast quotes for morals. I stood up, knees aching, and took the will downstairs. Poured myself a coffee. Black. No sugar. Set the paper beside it. And stared. Then I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. "Walter," he said, picking up on the second ring. "Everything all right?" "I need to make a change," I said. My voice was steady. Unshaken. "To the house?" "To the will." A pause. I could hear the scratch of his pen stopping. "What kind of change?" "The kind that leaves nothing to people who treat you like a burden," I said. "The kind that protects what's left of my dignity." He cleared his throat. "Understood. You'll need to come in. I'll be there first thing tomorrow." I hung up. Outside, the wind rattled the back windows. Somewhere in the dark, Evelyn's garden was still growing, neglected, maybe, but not dead. Like me. Not dead yet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until morning, Evelyn's old teacup in front of me, the one with the chip near the handle. The one she never let me throw out because it still holds tea just fine. The will sat on the table beside it, smooth and silent. So much paper for something that once felt so simple. I stared at the phone. Then picked it up. One last call. One last chance. Not for reconciliation, no. That was long gone. But for confirmation. Because even after everything, part of me still wanted her to surprise me. To fight for me. To care. She answered on the third ring. "Hello." Her voice was bright. Brisk. Like I'd interrupted a meeting. "Hi, sweetheart. It's me." Pause. "Oh. Hey, Walter. Everything okay?" "Not Dad. Not hi. Just oh." "Yes," I said slowly. "I was just thinking, it's been a while. Maybe we could talk. Just you and me." Another pause. The kind that fills your ears with a ringing sound, even though nothing's there. "Well. Tyler's on a client call right now and I've got a lot on my plate, but what's up?" I leaned back in the chair. The wood creaked beneath me. "I've just been thinking about the house. The future. What happens when I'm gone?" She didn't say anything. I could picture her, standing in that polished kitchen I helped pay for, checking her watch while I spoke. "I wanted to ask something," I said. "Do you ever think about your mother anymore?" That caught her off guard. "Of course I do." "Why?" "Because she loved this house. Every room. Every corner. She put her soul into it. Do you remember how she used to sing while trimming the rose bushes?" Madeline exhaled, sharp and annoyed. "Is this really what this is about?" I blinked. What is about?" "This guilt trip," she said. "Walter, we've talked about this. You're alone in that big house. It's too much. And frankly, it's not safe. Tyler and I just want what's best for you." "What's best?" I repeated. "And what's that, exactly?" "A place with professionals. Caretakers. Medication management. Somewhere you don't have to struggle anymore." "I'm not struggling, Madeline." She scoffed, actually scoffed. "You literally had a stroke watering the roses. Tyler says that could have been fatal." I didn't have a stroke. I was dehydrated. Still, she said. It's inevitable. You're aging. We're trying to be proactive. I closed my eyes. And when I opened them, everything was clear. I see, I said. You do. Her voice lightened again, falsely, like the waitress smile she used to put on as a teen when she wanted an advance on her allowance. Yes, I said. I finally do. There was a silence. Then, good. Because honestly, it's not just about the house. There are other financial decisions we should talk about too. Tyler's been helping me look into. I hung up. Just like that. No goodbye. No explanation. She didn't call back. I sat for a while after that. No rage. No tears. Just the stillness that comes right after you finally accept a hard truth. She was gone. Had been for years. And the woman Evelyn asked me to protect was no longer the girl she meant. This wasn't just distance. It was betrayal by attrition. By erosion. I reached for the will. Folded it once. Then slid it into the envelope and sealed it shut. Tomorrow, I'd meet with my lawyer. Tomorrow, I'd bury the past, with a pen instead of a shovel. And I'd make sure what came next would echo louder than any words Madeline failed to say. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and polished wood, a comforting kind of serious. The kind of room where no one raises their voice, but lives still get rearranged. His name was Glenn Weaver. We weren't friends, exactly, but he'd drawn up every legal document Evelyn and I ever signed. Our first mortgage. Our business incorporation papers. Our wills. He was a quiet man with a mustache like a worn broom and the patience of a mechanic doing delicate work. "You're sure about this?" he asked, tapping the folder twice with his pen. "I'm sure," I said. He opened the folder, adjusted his glasses, and began flipping pages. "Leaving everything to Madeline," he murmured. "That was the original?" "Yes." "And now?" He looked up. I reached into my coat pocket and placed a notepad on his desk. He flipped it open. The first page read: New beneficiaries. House, Mount Salus Veterans Shelter. Savings accounts, Children's Oncology Foundation. Investments, Evelyn Morgan Memorial Gardening Fund, to be established. Vehicle, donated to Trade School Auto Program. Coin collection, appraised and sold, proceeds split between above 3 charities. Personal items, letters enclosed with instructions. He looked up at me, frowning, but not surprised. "Nothing to Madeline?" he asked gently. "She already took what she wanted," I said. "And she's still hungry." We worked through the details like bricklayers, one line at a time. Glenn didn't ask questions once the decision was made. That's why I respected him. He moved efficiently, but never rushed. He let the silence hang where it needed to. By the time we were done, the paperwork was precise, cleaner than any blueprint I'd drawn in my contracting days. A legacy not just rewritten, but weaponized. There was one final section. Something I insisted on, even if Glenn called it unusual. We added a sealed envelope clause. A personal message, attached to a certified letter. It would only be opened in the event of my death, alongside the reading of the will. Glenn raised an eyebrow as he slid it into the official packet. "Can I ask what's inside?" I smiled. Just a few words she didn't want to hear while I was alive. I left the office lighter than I'd felt in months. Outside, the wind had picked up. The air had that late autumn bite to it, the kind that tells you winter is coming whether you're ready or not. But I was ready now. Let them think they'd won. Let Tyler keep shopping for assisted living brochures. Let Madeline keep practicing her performance of concerned daughter. I didn't need to argue anymore. Didn't need to confront them. Didn't even need to raise my voice. I'd already spoken the loudest way I could. In writing. And when the time came, that quiet little envelope would deliver the loudest sound they'd ever hear. The sound of everything they thought they owned. Slipping away. Sleep didn't come easy anymore. Most nights, I sat in Evelyn's old chair in the den with a blanket across my lap and the TV on low, pretending to watch documentaries I'd already seen. Sometimes I made it to midnight. Other times I just watched the shadows move across the ceiling and listened to the wind press its face against the window. There's something about silence after betrayal, it isn't peaceful. It scratches. It stings in the places where comfort used to live. But that night, sleep found me. Not all at once, not kindly. It snuck up behind me like an old friend I hadn't seen in years, laid its hand on my shoulder, and whispered, just for a moment, "Come back." In the dream, she was little again. 6 years old. Pigtailed. Grass stains on her knees and chocolate on her chin. We were in the backyard, the old one, before the remodel. The fence still needed painting. Evelyn was at the picnic table, peeling apples for pie, humming that old Patsy Cline tune she always hummed when she felt safe. Madeline ran across the yard barefoot, chasing a butterfly. She looked back at me and shouted, "Catch me, Daddy." So I did. I scooped her up, and she giggled, full, wild, beautiful. That kind of laugh that lives deep in a child's chest. The kind you can't fake. "You're fast," I said. "I'm magic," she replied. I held her close. I remember the smell of sweat and sunshine and shampoo. I remember Evelyn smiling over her shoulder. "I want to stay here forever," Dream Madeline whispered in my ear. "I'll keep you safe forever," I told her back. And for a moment, just a moment, I believed it. Then I woke up. The silence hit first. Not peaceful, empty. The kind of silence that reminds you what's gone. The room was cold. The blanket had slipped from my shoulders to the floor. My back ached. My throat was dry. The clock read 4:17 a.m. The chair beside me was empty. The backyard was dark. The apple pie had never been made. And the girl who once called herself Magic now called me Walter and asked me to downsize my life like I was a spreadsheet that didn't balance. I sat there a long time, blinking into the dark. Trying not to chase the dream back into my head. It was the worst kind of dream, not the kind that scares you. The kind that reminds you of everything you've already lost. I stood slowly. My knees cracked like old wood. I picked up the blanket and folded it, methodically, with the same hands that once carried her on my shoulders across county fairs and summer festivals. I walked to the window and looked out. The garden Evelyn planted still stood there. Overgrown. Unkempt. But alive. So was I. And I had one job left to do, not out of anger. But because some promises still mattered. Especially the one I'd made to myself now. They would learn what it meant to discard the man who built the foundation beneath their feet. And they would learn it the hard way. For the next 6 weeks, I didn't call. Didn't visit. Didn't answer. No Sunday lunches. No texts. No holiday planning. And they didn't press. That was the part that sealed it for me. If someone you love goes quiet, truly quiet, you check on them. You knock on the door. You show up with coffee and a concerned look. But they didn't. They were too busy enjoying the quiet. Believing I'd finally settled into silence like an obedient piece of furniture. One morning, about 3 weeks in, I saw Tyler in the local paper. Real Estate Digest, bottom of page 3. Tyler M., Cavendish expands boutique home network, I'm helping families upgrade their lives. His smirk sat under the headline like he'd just won something. I studied the photo. He stood in front of a newly renovated home, modern siding, 2-car garage, polished landscaping. His hand rested on a for sale sign like it was a trophy. Behind him, barely noticeable if you weren't looking, stood Madeline. Blonde highlights. Designer sunglasses. No wedding ring, probably just for the brand. And there it was again, that posture. That lean toward Tyler that used to belong to Evelyn when we were young. She had given it away so easily. That afternoon, I took a drive. Not out of nostalgia. Out of curiosity. I pulled onto their street, same as I had 100 times before. But I didn't park in front. No need. I wasn't knocking on the door. Instead, I parked 2 houses down under the shade of an old oak, rolled the window down halfway, and waited. I watched as Madeline stepped outside in yoga pants and a linen wrap, phone pressed between shoulder and ear. She didn't look both ways crossing the street, she never had. She carried a tote bag and what looked like a matcha latte. Tyler followed her a moment later, shirt untucked, holding 2 phones and a laptop under his arm. He said something. She laughed. The same laugh from our backyard. Just older now. Lighter. Emptier. They climbed into his car, that ridiculous luxury SUV he said was a tax write-off, and pulled out of the driveway. Gone. I waited another minute. Then I stepped out. Walked up to their front porch. Careful. Quiet. Slow. Not to sneak, just to see. The welcome mat still said, "This house runs on laughter and wine." The flower pots were dead. Plastic ones now. Easier maintenance. I peered through the front window. Inside, everything was clean, curated, just like they wanted their lives to look. But there was no warmth. No clutter. No soul. It looked like a stage. A showroom. And I felt no pain standing there. No grief. Just clarity. Let them live in their curated calm. Let them believe the storm had passed. They didn't know I'd already sown the wind. The following week, Glenn called. Everything's finalized. Deed signed. Beneficiaries registered. The fund paperwork is in order too. Good, I said. Hold it all until it's time. There was a pause. Walter, if I may, do you want them to find out soon? No, I said. Not yet. I want them to keep thinking they won. I hung up. Then I opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out the only thing I hadn't touched since the rewrite, the sealed letter. It was simple. No threats. No anger. Just the truth they didn't want to hear. I reread it once. Then resealed the envelope. Taped it shut. It would be delivered by Glenn himself, the day the will was read. By then, there'd be nothing left for them to protest. And the silence that followed would finally be mine. That weekend, I got another text from Madeline. Hope you're doing okay. Tyler says hi. Let's do dinner soon. No punctuation. No question mark. No real intent. I didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to say. Let them dine on illusion. Let them toast to control. Let them laugh and post and plan. They were living in the eye of the storm. And I was the wind waiting around them. It was a Thursday when the invitation came. Not a phone call. Not a knock on the door. Just a cream-colored envelope slid into my mailbox between grocery flyers and a credit card offer. The front read, "Celebration of Legacy, honoring Walter P. Morgan." I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the edges. Inside, on thick cardstock with gold-embossed lettering, it said, "Join us for an intimate dinner in appreciation of Walter P. Morgan, father, veteran, entrepreneur. A private celebration of the man whose hard work made our future possible." Below that, the RSVP was to a restaurant I couldn't afford on my best day. Hosted by Madeline and Tyler Cavendish. There was even a photo attached. Me, 20 years younger, holding a shovel at the ribbon cutting for our first business location. The image had been pulled from some old newspaper clipping. It didn't feel like a tribute. It felt like a eulogy with better lighting. I stared at it for a long time. A dinner to celebrate me, while I was still breathing. While I still remembered what it was like to be needed. They weren't saying thank you. They were saying goodbye on their terms. A living wake. One final performance to make it look like I was part of their story before they turned the page. I went. Not because I wanted to. But because I needed to see it. The restaurant sat on a rooftop downtown, with sweeping views of the skyline and soft piano music that sounded like it had been filtered through 4 layers of velvet. There were no old friends there. No neighbors. No one who'd shared late nights building the business from scratch. No one who remembered Evelyn's name. The guests were realtors. Designers. A mortgage broker. A man who ran a podcast about generational wealth transfer and who greeted me like I was an exhibit. Tyler gave a toast. Talked about gratitude. Talked about foundations. Talked about how proud he was to be carrying the Morgan name into a new era. Madeline clinked her glass and smiled at me like we were in a commercial for high-end retirement homes. I watched them both. Not with rage. But with the steady gaze of a man looking at ghosts. Because they didn't know it yet. But the foundation they stood on wasn't theirs. It never was. After dinner, Madeline pulled me aside. "Did you like it?" she asked, touching my elbow like I might float away if she didn't anchor me. "It was informative," I said. She laughed. "Tyler really wanted to do something special. You know how much we appreciate everything you've done." "Do I?" She blinked. I leaned in a little. "You know," I said gently, "there was a time when I thought legacy meant giving everything to your children." Her smile wavered. "And now? Now I think it means leaving behind something you'd be proud to see grow." She didn't know what to say. So I spared her the trouble. I nodded, thanked her for dinner, and walked out. Didn't wait for dessert. Didn't look back. That night, I stood in my kitchen, invitation still in my coat pocket. I took it out. Placed it in the fireplace. Watched it curl, blacken, and vanish. A legacy, they said. They were right about that part. Only. It wasn't the one they were expecting. It was a Tuesday, again. Tuesdays had taken a lot from me. Evelyn's death. The silence afterward. And now, on another Tuesday, I felt it coming, the final tremor before the fault lines gave way. The call came from Glenn at 9:02 a.m. I'd asked him not to use my name on the voicemail, just in case. "Things are in motion," he said. "We've begun the notification process. You'll likely hear from them by tonight." I didn't reply. I just stood in the kitchen, coffee going cold in my hand, and stared out at Evelyn's garden. Some roses had survived. Not many. But a few. Stubborn. Spiteful in their bloom. Just like me. By noon, the Cavendish house was already making calls. Glenn texted to say Tyler had left him a message in all caps and that Madeline had requested a meeting to clarify the legal implications. Clarify. I smiled at that. They weren't confused. They were panicking. Because the moment the executor triggered the distribution filings, every illusion they'd been living in, the house, the savings, the assumption that I was a fading man with fading power, began to crack. And inside those cracks, the truth bled out. I got the first call around 6:40 that evening. I let it ring out. Then came a text. "Dad. What is going on? We need to talk. I'm serious. Please respond." I didn't. A second message came minutes later. "Tyler says Glenn is mistaken. This is a huge misunderstanding. Please, we can fix this. There it was again. That word. Fix. As if I'd broken something by taking back what was never theirs to begin with. By 8 p.m., they were on my porch. I watched from the window, lights off, curtain barely parted. Madeline looked like a storm. Mascara smeared. Hair pulled back tight. The kind of frantic look that comes when a person realizes the game has changed and they're playing by the wrong rules. Tyler stood behind her, arms folded, trying to look composed but failing. I could see the twitch in his jaw from 50 feet away. They knocked. They rang the bell. They tried the handle. Then silence. Then the voicemail. Dad, this isn't fair. We've been planning everything around what you said, the house, the accounts, the future. You can't just take it back. That's not right. That's not what family does. Family. That word hit harder than I expected. Not because it hurt, not anymore. But because of how casually she'd weaponized it. At 9:13 p.m., I got a call from Glenn. They've threatened to sue, he said. Contest the will. And I've already filed the medical affidavit. Capacity is on record. Every signature was witnessed. Everything's ironclad. Good. He paused. Walter, may I ask, what was in the letter? I looked down at the fireplace. The ashes from their celebration invitation still faintly visible among the coals. And I read him the letter aloud, the same one Glenn had delivered alongside the estate documents. It read. To Madeline. You traded love for lifestyle. You looked at your father and saw a burden instead of a man who carried you. I gave you everything once, not because I had to, but because I believed you were the kind of person your mother could be proud of. You've shown me I was wrong. This isn't revenge. It's correction. Walter. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Glenn cleared his throat. Well. I suppose that will be the last word on the matter. No, I said quietly. The last word is already written in the distribution ledger. What Glenn didn't know, what I only learned later through mutual acquaintances and whispers, was just how quickly things started to unravel in their perfect little household. Tyler's meltdown came first. Apparently, he had already borrowed against the assumption of inheritance, floated promises to investors, took out a private loan with the house listed as a guaranteed future transfer. His lawyer dropped him the same week the will was read. But it was Madeline who cracked loudest. Neighbors said the screaming started around midnight. Not a fight, a collapse. Glass breaking. Doors slamming. Tyler yelling something about, "You told me it was done." Madeline sobbing back, "He was supposed to die quiet." The next morning, she showed up at Tyler's office unannounced, mascara streaked, hair wild, wearing a jacket that didn't match her shoes. She burst into a client meeting and demanded to see the books. When he tried to calm her, she slapped the folder out of his hands. It hit the floor and scattered documents across the carpet like dead leaves. One witness told Glenn she shouted. "My whole life was in that house. He gave it to me. How can he just take it back?" Tyler didn't answer. He just sat there, red-faced, realizing for the first time that he'd married a ghost, one that used to be someone's daughter, before the world taught her how to want too much for too little. 2 days later, Madeline moved into her sister-in-law's basement. The car was repossessed the following week. Tyler started showing up in online forums asking for angel investment advice. They stopped following each other on social media. That perfect photo of them on my back porch. Deleted. Replaced with nothing. The fallout came fast and loud. Tyler tried to spin the story to his clients, blamed unexpected family complications and legal confusion, but word got around. He lost 3 listings in 1 week. Then 2 partners. By month's end, the boutique firm was just a logo and a phone number no one answered. And Madeline? She called once more. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was slurred, not drunk, but cracked, like someone trying to scream through a pillow. You were supposed to love me. You were supposed to protect me. That's what she wanted. That's what you promised. Click. That was the last I ever heard her voice. Later, someone told me she'd shown up at Tyler's office with a printout of the will in one hand and a half-empty bottle of Chardonnay in the other. She told him he ruined her life. He told her there was nothing left to ruin. He moved out the next day. That night, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I slept all the way through. No dreams. Just peace. Word got around, of course. Madeline was living in a one-bedroom rental near the highway. Tyler was working freelance, trying to build something out of nothing again, this time without someone else's legacy to ride on. They stopped appearing in town. Stopped appearing together. And me? I kept Evelyn's garden alive. I kept her name alive. I kept my dignity. And in the end, that was more than enough.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.